Maximum news, man. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. The two major stories we're going to start with. Side, let me just ask you: do you want to hear good news or bad news first?
The good news is good. The bad news doesn't need to. Bad news could go away. Could go away. It's been a very frustrating week.
Yeah. I'm assuming you mean outside of the games world, or both the games world.
No. The games world has been hella depressing. Oh my goodness.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying. Do you want it to be like start with bad, then go good, and then get really bad, or do you just want it to be a one long trajectory down towards hell?
Yeah.
No. Okay. So good news or bad news?
Yeah. At this point, it doesn't matter anymore.
Okay. Let's just start with the bad news, because this is probably what most people are concerned about, despite what I think they should be concerned about. Bad news is Starfield and Redfall got delayed to 2023, the first half of 2023. Yeah. Bethesda put out a post on their Twitter page saying an update and that it's going to be delayed until that time. A little bit of insider info coming from people like Jason Schreier says that people on the inside were comparing Starfield to the next Cyberpunk if it were to release on the November 11th release date. So, our general policy here at Maximum News, and I think the general policy of hardcore gamers everywhere, is that you should release it when it's done. I'm glad, excuse me, I'm glad that they are deciding to delay it. That's the right decision. So that way, Todd Howard lives up to his promise that this will be the most polished game that they released up until, the modern day. Syb, your reaction to this news while I cough my lungs out for a second?
Yeah, well, I mean, so we did cover this kind of like when it happened, like lightly. Actually, did we? I think we did. It's been a hell of a week, and this is irregardless. This is bad.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's bad news for games in general. It's really bad news for Microsoft. Now, it's not bad news. It's not only bad news for games in general. This is good news in the sense that we're not going to get a buggy piece of garbage that isn't complete. And studios need to start realizing that this is something that they need to really press upon themselves and really make functional. And we have to make this work. We have to make this function. Otherwise, it's not going to. It's going to be. We're just going to keep getting the same thing over and over and over again, and you know what that leads to: insanity. And
I haven't told you the definition of insanity.
Yeah. So it's one of these things where it's like, all right, I think we're at the point now where it's like we don't want another Cyberpunk. We really don't. There were so many problems, so unpolished, so many features were cut when they should have just kept on. Like they shouldn't have rebooted it as many times as they did.
Yeah.
Probably the last reboot was what really killed, what really was a death blow to, the game being ultra successful. Now it's still generally successful, but a generally successful at the cost of your reputation is not as good as a good game if you just waited a few more months, or in Cyberpunk's case, it was like a year.
Yeah.
Everything that we've been hearing about Starfield, we've been hearing a lot of stuff about Starfield. There's a lot of that stuff that we don't know what's true and what's not. Right. So let's go with the 50% of it is true, 50% is not. And so just crank down the extremes, try and narrow them to middle field. Is it good or bad that they're doing this delay? It's probably good, because even if we're just doing the 50%, the flying apparently has some improvements to be done. And what if you know how Bethesda operates, it's very similar to a lot of other studios. So this is probably a similar problem. The flying mechanic was built and designed one way. They can't, in some cases, they just can't make a system better just by tweaking it. You have to take it back to basics, completely rebuild it from the ground up. This is what several games have done with core systems that were causing them issues, and you really do have to like pull it all out, make the game functional, without it, and then build it back in so that, and you do that so that nothing else falls apart by you tweaking the flying thing. You have to make sure that it's functional. That can take 2 to 3 months just to do that.
Yeah.
Just to pull a system out of the game and then redesign it from the ground up. So here, I think that was probably the case. They got it, and they probably had a much better flying system that they were toying with on the side. And they're at the stage now where they kind of look at it and say, all right, which one's better? Well, this one is clearly better. It feels better. It feels tighter. It just feels 100 times better. The other one is very, very problematic, very clanky, very chunky. It's not great. It's not smooth. It's not been polished at all. We don't think we can get it much better than it currently is.
Yeah.
And for an example, I would say look at the way their animations worked in previous games. Some of their third-person animations were really janky. Some of their NPC walking animations,
the moonwalking in Oblivion.
yeah, stuff like that was really janky. Now they've replaced the animation engine, from what they've said, but the flight thing is a serious problem. So if the flight thing is a serious problem, then it needs to be tweaked, it needs to be altered, it needs to be improved, and I don't think we'll get it as is at the moment.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking and I'm feeling that the flight thing is probably what they needed to do. They probably need to strip it out, get a couple months more polish, put it back in, and then polish up, and then spend the rest of that time with all their other departments polishing up as much as they humanly possibly can.
Yeah.
And if they can do that, then that'll work.
Yeah, if you guys have been listening to this show for any amount of time and heard us talk about Starfield, you know how adamant and hoping that I am that this game will have some sort of flight mechanic, maybe like what Star Citizen promised us all those years ago by being able to fly between planets. If I could get that in this game immediately becomes my favorite game of all time. I'm being slightly facetious, but not really. If that's the thing, I want them to delay it as long as they can until they can get it right. Yeah, so it sucks. It does suck for Microsoft and Bethesda, but for us gamers, I like to think that Bethesda is sort of a different studio. It seems like they learned their lesson from their past mistakes compared to somebody like CD Projekt Red, that this delay is actually going to result in a much better game, whereas the delays for Cyberpunk 2077 didn't really result in much. Well, I mean, Cyberpunk on PC was pretty good, but yeah, we remember what happened there. Just one last thing that I think is worth mentioning. You know who benefits the most from this delay, Sib? It's From Software. Like we were always going to say, like, if it's going to be, what's going to be Game of the Year 2022? It's going to be either Elden Ring or Starfield. Well, now it's just Elden Ring, right?
Yeah. Well, no, I think, and this is one of the things that why I think that launching late in the season is very risky as far as like if you're trying to get like Game of the Year.
True.
If you're trying to get Game of the Year, launching late is difficult because not everybody, especially not professionals, they don't have the time to play your game fully and to also see the social impact of it. It's like, yes, The Witcher 3 was very big and very good, but I would warrant to say that I'm going to bet you that overall Fallout had a bigger impact on the gaming world, and I say that highly focusing on the fact that it's a very close call. You know, you had the Witcher TV show. We have a TV show coming out for Fallout. Yeah. So that competition that happened in 2015 is still ongoing. You know, because Witcher won Game of the Year then, and they're still competing, I think, to see which one ends up more culturally significant. There's a modding community for both of those games. One of the modding communities has a lot more going on to it, and frankly, has some of the best modders in the entire world. And I'm not saying that because I happen to be one.
She'll sit. No,
I'm not biased at all at my own greatness. No. I'm joking, but it is one of those things where it is a very close call, and I don't necessarily think for sure there is one absolute right answer. I think they're both they both hit this high point of professionalism. So when I look at, does Bethesda actually want to have Game of the Year? Well, I think they do.
Yeah.
Right?
It helps.
I don't think they don't not want it. I don't think it's their primary concern, because they're not baiting, for it like all these other stupid, ridiculous, useless, just garbage developers are that do. They put out a game, and the game is put out there. It's not to make the studio money. It's not to improve the life of the people who work on it. It's not even to, promote the company. It's there to just win awards and pad somebody's ego, right?
I know exactly who you're talking about.
I don't think Bethesda does that. I don't think they care to do that. I think what they care to do, and what I think they get a lot of satisfaction from, is that, X number of years later, there's still tens of thousands of people playing their game on a daily, weekly basis. And it's still hailed, these are still hailed as, they don't impact, the numbers the way that, it doesn't impact the numbers the way Fortnite or COD used to, but it impacts the overall, culture of gaming more than those things, I think.
Certainly healthier.
And I really think that, because I think that a person who plays 6 hours of COD every week, and that's it, I don't think it's just like people who play Candy Crush, and that's it. That's the only game they play. I really don't think those people are actual gamers. Like they're a gamer, but they're not part of the gaming culture. You play a game for 6 hours a week. You're not invested in anything, and the game that you play is like one of the biggest, most cheesiest thing, and you just kind of play it casually. It's I don't think you're a gamer. I think you're like a movie goer kind of thing, where it's you're not an aficionado. You don't have a collection. It's oh, I love movies. Oh, really? You have a big collection of them? No, I just go to see the movie once every 6 months.
Yeah,
you're not a movie fan. You're just somebody who goes to see movies every once in a while. Again, I'm not saying that
there's anything wrong with that. No.
There's nothing inherently wrong with that, and I'm not suggesting, if you're listening to this podcast, you're obviously more than a gamer than those people.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that in a way that those people are stupid. I don't think anybody's stupid. I think a lot of people.
Those people are cultural.
They're mostly in politics, but but those people, you're right. Yeah, those people, they're cultural impact, right?
Yeah. Well, no, I was going to say that those moviegoers are you could call them cultural moviegoers the same way you call certain Catholics cultural Catholics. They're only Catholic in name only. But anyways, that's the news. Let's move on to some good news that we can all sink our teeth in, particularly me, because it has to do with Silent Hill. And if you know anything about me and the stuff that I do on YouTube, you know that my most popular content centers around Silent Hill. Unfortunately, though, that and the other Konami property that I'm most famous for talking about, Metal Gear Solid, have been dormant for the last 7 to 8 years until yesterday. So, Saib, check this out. There's this guy on Twitter named Aesthetic Gamer. He also goes by the name Dusk Golem. He got a hold of apparently at least 40 images from the new Silent Hill game that we've all theorized was going to be coming out soon, but we never received any official confirmation. I think the last thing that we heard about in regards to anything having to do with Silent Hill potentially was last July, when Bloober Team partnered with Konami to eventually bring some of their IPs to life, and we all assumed that was going to be Silent Hill. It obviously wasn't going to be, Contra. Although they could probably make a better Contra game than the one that most recently came out. But anyways, the guy who got a hold of these images, even though he had upwards of 40, he decided to only put out 4 on Twitter. And we know that they're legit because soon after he posted them, they got taken down. Now, we can't show them here on screen. We can describe what's in the images, though. If I could just, I have a video coming out.
They are going around everywhere.
Yeah, people just don't seem to understand the meaning of the Streisand effect and the fact that it is a very real thing. When you DMCA something, Konami, that means that it's real, and you don't want people thinking that. It's better to just ignore it. But anyways, I have the description of the photos up here, and then we can get into it. This is from a Polygon article. I'm just going to quote this just because, this is public and it hasn't been taken down, so I think it's safe to read what it says here. 5 images of the Untitled Silent Hill project have been leaked, including one which appears to be a screenshot of a dirty, trash-filled apartment, a close-up visual of a woman's face stylized to look like torn paper, a screenshot with text that appears to be an email containing information about a child neglect investigation, and a screenshot and artwork of a hallway covered with sticky notes, with a humanoid character covered in what appears to be flower blossoms. Then there was a 5th sort of artwork of the 4th picture, featuring the signature of Masahiro Ito, who is very famous for working on Silent Hill. He's the guy who designed Pyramid Head. Mm-hmm. The leaker also mentioned a couple other interesting details. A couple of the characters in this new Silent Hill game will apparently be named Anita and Maya. SMS messages are going to feature prominently with the game. Now, this one is particularly interesting because we learned back in 2019, thanks to a very prominent former games journalist named Alana Pierce. She said that Hideo Kojima's canceled Silent Hills game would have featured a mechanic where you could receive SMS messages on your phone as a part of the Silent Hills experience. So it looks like whatever this new game is, it's going to be bringing that function back. And then the last bit of really interesting information is that this isn't the only Silent Hill game in development. There's at least one other one, and there have been rumors that there's actually upwards of 3 or 4. Who's working on these games? We can only quasi-confirm that one of them is going to be Bloober, and I'd be willing to bet that the images that we're seeing here are from the Bloober team game, but it's looking like there are going to be other ones. According to the leaker, Sony is involved in some regard. Whether or not they're involved with the Bloober team project or involved with something completely separate from that, we don't know. And that is pretty much all that we have going right now. As for I'll give my quick opinion, and then Simon wants your opinion on this, obviously. The photos people are making so many assumptions about the quality of the game just from 4 photos. That's really, really not.
Yeah, especially when it comes to leaks. A lot of these photos are months, if not years old.
Yeah, that's one thing I forgot to mention. These photos are actually from 2020, so at least 2 years old. So it'll look very different now.
Yeah, I mean, 2 years in a game's creation is that's like comparing you to like your 5-year-old self. If you were like 20 when you're listening to this, it's just not practical in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
maybe 10-year-old person to yourself. Yeah, it's like looking at a 10-year-old version of yourself and somebody who's 20 and trying to compare those two. It's like, well, look, how do you think this game's gonna work? He's got some buckeye teeth there, and he just looks like an idiot. It's like, yeah, it turns out. I mean, it's gonna take time, right?
Yeah.
And so this is one of those things that like take the visuals with a grain of salt. What this does mean is that for sure we're getting this, and I'm frankly surprised.
Yeah,
I never thought we would. I legitimately never thought we would actually get this game, because this company hates professional game or hates
games,
AAA games. They hate AAA games because they cost so much money to make, and you have to get them good, and like, why not just make a bunch of games that people, that you put into pachinko parlors and just like, just
raking the money from that.
In the money. I was gonna say another word that's kind of sounds like that one. But yeah, rake in all that money without as violently as possible. Not so cool.
Right.
Not so cool.
I want to say something, but I won't. But back to just very quickly, my general impression. There's not really much to make from these photos. If I were to say something about the direction that it appears that they're going with this game, it's not where I would have imagined that they would have gone with these characters and sort of what it seems like the tough subjects that they're going to tackle, because Silent Hill has dealt with a lot of really, really dark subjects, like well, I probably can't say them out loud out of risk of getting demonetized, but this one, I didn't mention child neglect. If they do with that subject what they did with the other subjects in the past Silent Hill games, where they go like really, really intense and really, really dark, so like it completely stands out from any other game in that genre, that's what they need to do. And if they do that, I have great hopes that they'll be able to pull something off. Bloober Team, I'll just reiterate my quick thoughts on them. I'm kind of so-so about their games. I think Observer is criminally underrated. That is a really good game. I did not like The Medium, and I don't really care too much about Layers of Fear, although a lot of people really do like them. I choose to remain just cautiously optimistic for now, particularly because we haven't heard anything about Silent Hill in a long time. And now that it looks like these are legit, we're almost there to an official announcement, I choose to be happy. Side?
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping that it's going to be good. And I'm hoping that, like, I don't know, the one problem I still have with this in any way, shape, or form is that this is still these guys.
Yeah.
This is still the people who just treated their fans and their devs like garbage, and have for a very long time. And now that they're finally facing some money problems, now and only now are they coming back, and they're utilizing these other studios and potentially some third party like support studios to pump this game out. I'm worried that it may not actually be good, and that if it is like mildly good, that they are going to come up with some way to like just pump the audience for every dollar that they have, based off of like not.
Saib, I'm sorry to interrupt you, man, but you said that they're having money troubles. I'm looking at this article from Eurogamer that just came out 2 days ago, and it says Konami just had its most profitable year ever.
Well, okay, so let's rephrase that.
Okay.
Not money problems as in like, they're gaining money from people who are, addicted gamblers, and they're just throwing money at them because there is a lot of that. And that's that's good for their bottom line. But it's like Genshin Impact. Right now, Genshin Impact is doing very well financially, but they're also staring down the barrel of a gun of a government who's like, at any moment, we're just going to take everything you have and disappear you people.
Yeah.
And that's not exactly the same thing that's happening here with them, but they are looking down this barrel of like, there's a lot of countries, there's more and more countries every day who are banning this like video game
industry.
This high impact, both like the high impact video game gambling side, like the microtransactions, the loot boxes, that kind of stuff. They're making more and more enemies with this kind of stuff, and yeah, and one of the big reasons why is that there is a lot of people who are noticing that this money doesn't, like, if you've got a problem gambler in your local town who's always betting on like the local gambling thing, or the state sponsored gambling, the number draws, right? The county and the country and the local government get a lot of chunk of that money.
Yeah.
Like 50% of it at the very least, sometimes more. And the companies that run these, they have to like pad the local politicians' like bank accounts. They have to like, grease wheels. They have to do this. It's a very like money stays in the system kind of thing. But when somebody spends 20 grand on, Genshin Impact, that money's not local. That money's gone from your local economy. Just poof, gone. It is. You might see 1% of that if you're lucky. So there is a lot of gaming companies, or sorry, not gaming companies. There is a lot of governments looking at these gaming companies, going, you know what? This is a bigger and bigger issue. There's more and more people complaining about it. If I push for a complete and total ban on this, that is a win-win-win-win-win for me. Like, there is no downside to that. sure, you might make a handful of people upset that they can't play their game anymore, but that's it. That's the only loss that you're going to have, and those people don't vote anyways. So, that's what I mean by like they're having problems. It's not that they're having problems now. Yes, it's a very lucrative thing. What they're having is they're having this problem of like the future is not guaranteed for them. That's the problem. That's the difficult thing.
That makes sense.
That's the thing that if that stuff gets banned tomorrow, they are screwed.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's what I mean. And yeah,
especially because China is such a huge market. Plus, add on everything that's going on in the world right now with inflation, and it's looking like we're going to be going into a recession in the next quarter. Well, officially, we probably are already in one right now if you're looking at the stock market. But yeah, hopefully this is a sign of financial prudence and creative prudence on Konami's part, and this will be a sign of not only a return to a plethora of Silent Hill content, but also maybe Metal Gear. But then again, I would rather have Kojima involved in some way with that, and something tells me, Saib, they're not. Konami's not looking to do that. But anyways.
Yeah.
Let's move on to other, one could argue somehow an even more crappy company than Konami, even though it's a really high bar to cross, Activision Blizzard. I saw this, what is it, a diversity tool that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Yeah, elaborate on why, like what they're doing there.
So yeah, and they put out a comment on that. So what it was is it was a graph chart. You know those graph charts when you're picking a character and it's like HP, attack, agility, difficulty, magical power, and stuff like that. Range, or add whatever you want. It's a wheel showcasing how many points the character has and what, and you can then like look through them and see, oh well, this character has a higher this, and that character has a higher that. And it's like they did one of those, but for diversity.
Okay.
So it was, are they
50% black, 100% black?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it was. It was like culture, sexual attraction, all the things that we shouldn't be judging people based off of, because most of those things you can't affect on your own. You can't. You can't change your. You can't change. Well, I mean, it's messed up. It was messed up of them to put it out, and they recognize this because they've since put out this. So the internet was going nuts with this.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, wow, this one person who looks black doesn't get full points for being black. Is that because they're mixed? Is that a standard that we're now judging people based off of? Like, what? Oh, you only get marks because you're half, mixed instead of like, being not mixed. And so therefore that makes you a worse person. And then of course a bunch of people were like, so wait, what's the base here that's wrong? Because clearly, like, I would give most everybody I meet, full points on culture because they're fully, most of them are like, most people who like their culture are very happy about their culture. But that's not good enough here because it's not the right culture. And as soon as you start saying that, it gets very like, whoo, I mean, that is like that is very messed up. Some would say that judging somebody poorly based off of their culture and ethnicity is, I mean, we used to call that racism. We're getting real spicy today here, boys. Like, it boiled a lot of people's blood. And it was kind of disgusting to see people lumped into things they can't change about themselves and then being scored off of that.
Yeah.
And it was a literal score. This character had 5 points or 3 points. And that made them less of a person than somebody who had 6 to 7 points. Oh, look at this 6 to 7 point person. That person's way more important than this other person. And again, it's like, this is some of the most, not the most, but this is some of the most like soft racist stuff I have ever seen.
Yeah. How do you put a number on something as subjective as your immutable characteristics and their value to anything? Because it's supposed to be something that's completely irrelevant. Oh, you're black. Oh, you're okay. Whatever.
Like, I mean, you would normally celebrate stuff, that people are or are not, or like whatever, but you didn't assign a value system to that. That's just that's so
aren't we all equal?
Creepy. That's so creepy to just look at people and say, you're not this, so you're not and it's like to what point? Like, to what point are you doing that? And then how are you judging that? Like you're looking at, like, right now we have a war between two people that are very, very, very close in homogenous genetics.
Yeah,
you could say, and you're suggesting that they're both like what? Like that's what I'm asking. I'm not putting words in their mouth, but clearly that's a category, and that's really weird because not everybody is on this. Like, not everybody that has one nationality or the other in that conflict has positive or negative opinions about what's going on.
Yeah.
They're not homogenous. Why are you doing this? Like, it just smacks of like just shallow corporate, like, diversity quota stuff that they've actually turned into an actual literal quota system. That they're saying this is now good, these people are now good, these characters are good or bad because of things that they are like. And again, it's like, are you putting that on your writing staff? Like, are you pushing that on your writing staff to beat them down because they're not being diverse enough? Are you just saying, look, we don't want any more like people of a certain ethnicity? Because that's, I mean, again, it's really messed up. And again, I don't know where they're going with this. Like, I looked at this, I'm like, what possible use could this be? So anyways, they've come out and stated what possible use this is. And I am quoting as per the article in Kotaku. That's where I got this from.
Okay.
The tool isn't meant to be in isolation. Teams would sit down with company DE and I staff, so that's the diversity and inclusion people, to identify existing norms and then discuss, educate, consult, and collaborate on how a character's representation is expressed beyond those norms. This process is intended to create a conversation where our developers, assisted by the tool, challenge assumptions, assess choices, and find opportunities for authentic representation to be fostered in our games. Activision Blizzard is committed to reflecting the diversity of its millions of players around the world through representation, inclusion in its games, as well as its employees. Our intent with this blog entry was to share an in-process piece of our journey in this endeavor. End quote. I would like to ask a question. Why wasn't I called up to represent cyborgs?
I know, right? What the hell?
I'm pretty sure they have a cyborg in there. I'm not 100%. I do know that they have AI in there. I would like to know where they're getting the cultural reference points for AI. Because this isn't a game that's based in today. This isn't Call of Duty in modern times, and they're wanting to make sure that everybody has a representative player that they can pick from. Which, again, I don't know why you would even think that that's even possible. Because, like, I mean, every time you zoom in on a group of people, you find more diversity amongst those people the closer you look at them. The more you zoom in on any person, you take a set of twins, the set of twins are going to have very different ideas on very different things. So why would you even think that's a thing? And why would you think that a small team of DE and I are able to properly transmit and communicate all cultures in that 9 million, or in the millions and millions of players that play your game? Like, why would you? How? Let me phrase this another way. How dare you assume that a bunch of poorly educated people in the terms of all of human culture, is able to represent all of human culture by themselves. Why are these people who have not been able to study the culture of all of the millions of players that play their game, because that would just be impossible, but then are assuming to be able to take command and issue and direct these conversations? Like, if you wanted to actually have this conversation, you'd have to create a pretty big system in which to communicate to all your fans and have all your fans impart and add their own opinions of what they wanted to see as far as, being outside existing norms.
Yeah.
Then if you involved your player base, then you could actually get this. But you're not involving your player base. You're involving a handful of people who are suggesting that they are capable of identifying all outside norms from everybody else that exists on the planet right now. That's incredibly cocky, rude, and in the case of just us two sitting here, again, I'm fairly positive you don't have anybody who represents the two of us.
Yeah. Where's the autistic character? Where's the yellow character?
Like, they do have an autistic character, but they really hamstringed that in after they had created her.
Oh, who is it? Because I just started playing Overwatch pretty soon, like recently.
It's the girl who throws out the little robot thingies.
Oh, okay.
I want to say it's Symmetra, but I don't want to confuse her with somebody else's name.
Gotcha.
But it's like they like it's not like what I'm calling out. I'm not calling them out directly. I'm just saying that it's very foolish for a handful of people to say, I'm going to speak for all of the world now because I'm just so good at this. It's like, you're not so good to do that, period. Nobody is. Nobody would be. So why aren't you involving your actual like player base and actually like getting some actual hard real numbers on actual real diversity, which they're not, because this isn't real diversity. This is diversity quotas that a corporation uses to pander. And that's pretty disgusting.
And even then, even if you were to get the entire player base involved in trying to sculpt the game, I don't think you would be able to succeed, really, because you'd be trying to address everybody's desires and taking into account creative endeavors that don't take into account your personal vision. And those things would clash, and then because you'd be trying to please too many people, you end up pleasing no one. However, I think there is a way to sort of approach being able to represent a whole bunch of different cultures in a cool and respectful way. We kind of got that with the first Overwatch. I think, like I just said, I recently just started getting into it because my girlfriend bought me the game. We've been playing it together. It's pretty cool. Like, I like the people from different backgrounds and the lore behind them, and it seemed to have come about in an organic way. And, created its own identity without having that sort of stuff forced upon them. But I can easily see stuff like this tool making it very difficult for people to be able to produce something that's organic, be it with Overwatch 2 or anything else that comes out in the near future. Because it feels forced, and it's just so I believe it's so unhealthy to force this kind of stuff. So it's like, oh, all right, Saab, what's your solution to this? My solution would be to literally ask players to create their, like, my solution would be twofold. You want diversity? You want true diversity? Give the largest creation tool to character creation that you have ever given in the history of that has ever existed in the history of video games. Create an option for players to be able to create whatever character they want, dressed in any way they want to be dressed, using any frame of weapons or tools or abilities that you could like create the biggest library, and then assign them certain points and powers. And like, you can't have like, this ability that's also like, that's a 180 degrees opposite to this other ability that you have. So, you can't pick certain abilities, to try and like balance things. It would be very difficult, but that would be next gen. Yeah.
And that would also solve your stupid diversity problem, because it's not fake diversity that's listed and categorized by a corporation that's run by a bunch of people who aren't actually that diverse. that, they're not the ones creating that. It would be the players creating all of their own diversity. Then you would have an actual like diverseness. You would literally have the biggest amount of diversity you could possibly have with your characters. And they have this in World of Warcraft. You not only can you select your race and class, which is a start. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but they have the ability for you to like to have like there's a mod that you can download that allows you to do like your character backstory, and you can have there's a whole bunch of tools there. It's like you already are sitting on the tools that the community is using to create their own diversity, and you're ignoring that in favor of corporatized okayness that, again, you don't talk about when you go to other places on the planet. There's no conversations about certain characters' sexual identification when it comes to advertising your game in certain parts of the world. So don't give me this crap that you're creating diversity. You're not creating diversity. You're creating corporate diversity, which is a whole lot different, and everybody knows it's fake. And the other option you could do, if you couldn't go that far, the other option you could do is if you're making characters and you're giving these characters out for people to play. Here's a brilliant thing. I know this is so far beyond this has never been done before. You could have players submit their own ideas. Oh my God. Excuse me. I literally breathed in too much. I coughed. But imagine that. Imagine the ability to let players experience or create their own ideas, and then those ideas are then pitched to the actual devs for them to use. They used to do these. I'm being facetious. They used to do this all the time back in the old days of like radio and even like early television.
Yeah,
it's like send us your idea, and we'll possibly use it in an ad, that kind of thing. And sure, yeah. It was the corporate claimed ownership of every idea that came in. But it was still like, that's still a lot better than the idea that they're pressing out now, which is that, just turns out that, we're just going to control everything in every which way. And our diversity is what we decide. That's my biggest issue. Diversity is right now, to them, diversity is what they decide. It's not what their players are deciding. It's not what the individual is choosing to have. The diversity is what they tell you that it's okay to have. And that's what's good. They're ranking a system. When did they put out this chart and ask people to grade things themselves? Right? Like that would be another great idea. Put out this tool and let the community vote on every single character. And every single player can go through every single character and say, I believe that this character's cultural level is this high. And I believe this is this high. And I believe that is that high. And I believe this is unimportant because I don't care about that. Like, I don't care about the gender. I just find the class cool. I don't care about the class. I find them as an individual cool, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then you'd actually have real data. But this isn't real data. This is cowardly data. This is data that is created to make certain people happy. Which, again, if those people were honest, that would be insulting. That's like letting Coca-Cola, decide what your personal activism is going to be like. You really want a corporation deciding that?
No, and I don't think Activision Blizzard is in any place to be able to decide what is moral, at least at this point in time.
Zero.
Maybe not. Maybe later when the Microsoft acquisition gets approved and they get some of these people out of there.
Fire all these jokers. Fire all these jokers who would dare to assume that culture of all of your players better than the players do.
Anyways,
let's move on.
we got about 10 minutes left, and we have 4 stories on the docket. Do you want to do all of them?
These are pretty quick. Mass Effect 5. So Blizzard or BioWare came out, said that we're sorry for this wording. You see, we hire at our company. We hire people who have no experience and no interaction with our games or our stories. And when they put this out, they didn't understand or know who Commander Shepard was in any way, shape, or form. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't overreact to this because, the people who wrote this have no idea what Mass Effect even is. They're running the biggest product center for our IPs, and they don't know who Commander Shepard is. Why do these corporations hire these idiots? I shouldn't say they're idiots. It's not their fault that they're not into the games.
Yeah.
But why is a corporation saying, all right, so we've got 10,000 fans applying to work for us every single day, and not one of them has the capability of what we want. We got to find somebody who's not interested in our products at all because, that's just the smart thing to do. Disgusting. Again, not the actual people's fault. I want to make that clear. I don't want to bully the people who wrote this. I do want to point out how the head of their hiring departments apparently has absolutely no desire to hire people who actually know about their video game.
It's called nepotism, man.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah. They hire on people that know nothing about the game, but because they know somebody within the company and they need a job, they'll get those people instead of people that are actually passionate about the games. And given BioWare's most recent output, I think that's a pretty worthwhile theory to go by.
It's not good.
Yeah.
In other news, neuroscience has now proven that children who spend an above average time playing games can increase their IQ points above average.
Makes sense.
That's pretty impressive. That's legit. In some cases, it was up to 3 to 4 points. That's pretty high. The average was about 2.5. But that's impressive. Like, IQ is not something you can raise very well.
Yeah.
If you have a randomized IQ test, most people's IQ stays roughly the same.
Mm-hmm.
And things like learning music, things like learning like advanced critical thinking skills,
or watching Rick and Morty,
and now playing games can increase you ever so slightly. It's not a lot, but it is something ever so slightly, which is something you can't do with a lot of other tools. There's a lot of tools out there. There's a lot of ways of educating and learning. Most people's IQ stays pretty solid, pretty crystallized, and that stays true throughout their entire life, for the most part. And it declines, later stages in life. It declines quite rapidly. But this is cool news. We'll try and pin that in the description.
Yeah, it makes total sense, by the way.
You should send it to all your relatives who doesn't think video gaming is a good use of time.
Yeah, man. I've been playing Crash Bandicoot and even games that I shouldn't have been playing, like Silent Hill at the age of 6. Mm-hmm. And the problem solving and the visual stimulation that comes from video games, hand-eye coordination, that's bound to have some sort of positive impact on the brain in those regards. Although, granted, I wouldn't recommend playing games like Silent Hill or Resident Evil like I was at the age of 6, but other games like Crash Bandicoot, puzzle solving games, absolutely. If I ever have kids one day, that is one thing that I will absolutely be introducing them to games like that.
Yeah. And then another quick story here. Netflix has decided that they're no longer playing the picking a side game, which is an interesting thing. They came out and said that they're going to make content for a wide range of audiences, and not all of their content is going to even be accepted in certain places in the world. And that's fine. They'll just curate it for different areas and different stuff. But if they told their employees that if they don't agree with allowing artists to create art unfettered by censorship and unfettered by those who would tell them what they can or cannot create, that Netflix is not a place for them to maintain their employment. This came out yesterday. This is shocking. This is genuinely shocking. I remember the other day we were talking about Netflix, and I'm like, well, I know how they could be saved, but they don't really seem to be interested in that.
And then they did.
Turns out they did.
They listened to our show, Sib.
This is one thing that I would have suggested is like, tell everybody who's telling you what you should or should not make to basically screw off. And that now there is a case in like one or two of their shows I don't think they should like.
Cuties.
I like so the cuties thing is like I believe that that the general concept of that story was decent. The concept was decent. The writing was okay-ish, but they should have subbed out the actual scenes of the kids doing adulty things,
Yes.
and they should have replaced them with a different way of doing that. Animation is one way. That's the way that Kill Bill handled it, and I have to say that Kill Bill, nobody complained too much about that. It was an acceptable way to phrase and showcase an actual legitimate real problem that we have today, and they did it really good. Yeah, I don't know if you have you ever seen Kill Bill?
Yeah, I saw both of them. I do remember the animated part in the first movie, but I can't remember the content.
It's because
of it.
so the content was that she basically became a prostitute at like age 12.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, so they animated that part into animation, and they didn't showcase. It wasn't like they were making the other anime. But they used it to showcase something that would have been very, 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 very difficult and extremely inappropriate for them to film. And I think they did that part okay. And I would have suggested highly that something else be done here in a same level. Also, the story, it ended very poorly. It ended extremely poorly. They didn't I feel that the writing staff was like decent, like halfway through. They weren't as terrible as some people suggest. They weren't as great as some other people were suggesting. They were middle of the road writers. I think a load of people I know could have written better. They really left that on a poor stance, but it's widely liked in certain countries, and certain countries, people took it to their courts, and the courts shrugged their shoulders and said it's fine. And so it's like, okay, if they think it's fine, that's fine. But in certain other countries, they took it to courts, and the courts were like, yeah. that's going to be illegal here. And so I think that stuff needs to be respected a little bit more as far as like legality. But then as far as what the authors and creators of the shows are actually creating, I don't want them to face censorship. I don't want anybody to face censorship. I do want people to be on a fair like playing field as far as like what it comes to like funding and what shows are forced in front of me. There were a lot of bad shows that just were bad. They're not made well. They're just garbage. And they were thrown in front of me when I did have a Netflix, and it was like, here, watch this. This is really cool. It's like, actually, no, it's not. It's really poorly written, and it violates every like all the lore that this series built up. And no, I think it's gross and it's dumb. Not because of them ruining the story and ruining the lore and not paying attention. It's like, oh yeah, we had this here. No, you never had that there. The lore says that quite clearly. Oh well, you just don't like the show. It's like, oh yeah, I just don't like the show. Yeah, you don't like the new captain because the captain's a woman. It's like, actually, my favorite series of Star Trek is Voyager, so that's out. Well, you don't like it because there's other ethnicities around. It's like, and my second favorite show and my favorite episode ever was from Deep Space Nine. So again, you can kindly shove that up your butt and jump out an airlock. It's just not like, give us meritocracy.
Yeah.
Netflix. Give us meritocracy, give funding to a wide variety of shows, and just watch what becomes popular, and don't try and play with the numbers. Just give us stuff, and I think that's what will make your platform good again. So very quickly, last story. Phil has commented, just squaring back to our first story. Phil Spencer has come out and talked about the cancellations, not the cancellations, the delays. They're not canceled, ladies and gentlemen. They're just delayed. So they're delayed. He goes, these decisions are hard on teams making the games and our fans. While we fully support giving teams time to release the great games when they're ready, we hear your feedback. Delivering quality and consistency is expected, and we will continue to work better to meet those expectations. This has hurt them pretty heavily.
Yeah.
As far as this showcase goes, assuming that they don't have anything else that's going to be announced for this year. Assuming they have nothing else, No AAA title to announce for this year. If they do not have a AAA title that is coming out this year that is going to really pull in the numbers, they are in a pretty bad way. And I was surprised that both Starfield and Redfall both got delayed.
Yeah, me too.
I would, and if I were them, I'd be like, is there any way we can bring in enough people to make one of these games ready for this year's release? That's a conversation I'm sure they had, and I'm sure that they said probably not. If we get Fable, Avowed, Perfect Dark, any of that stuff, fingers crossed, maybe it would be recoverable. But I don't think any of those are coming this year either.
Yeah, we haven't seen anything from Avowed for what, a couple of years. Yeah,
no, just the announcement trailer. And again, I really doubt that they had it because they just didn't have the numbers. They just did not have the numbers in the studios to make those by this point. So yeah, that's it, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, that's it. Even though I was looking forward, just one last quick thing on that. Even though I was looking forward to Starfield quite a bit playing at the end of this year, hey, at least in regards to myself, at least, and I think you, it'll just give us more time to sink into Hogwarts Legacy, which is looking pretty damn good. All right. That does it for this episode of Maximum News. I really got to go. Both use the washroom and get other stuff done. But thank you so much for joining us, guys. Listen, make sure you hit that like button before you go. It's free and easy to do and helps us out a lot over here. I want to thank Syb, as always, for doing this show with me. Syb, tell other people about the main channel, please, and thank you.
Yeah, the Triple S League. Check out the main channel at the Triple S League on YouTube. And also, Max, you gotta make sure that warp core gets fixed there.
Wait, what? What warp core?
You had a warp core alarm going off.
Oh, right. Well, no, they actually didn't hear it because I had the thing muted, but you heard that. Yeah.
I heard that. Okay. Well, then they don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and by the way, it wasn't a warp core, it was a bomb. And you guys can find me at my main channel, just at Max Derrat, and all the other forms of social media at Max Derrat. Thank you so much, guys. And until next time, if I'm still alive, just want to remind you, as always, and as per usual, stay yellow.